Hello, everyone, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 29th of May. Let's see if I can get this week, if I can get the dates right this week. I think we're off to a good start. I'd like to welcome you today because today is an important day in the province of Alberta here in Canada. Today is election day. So I want to talk a little bit about politics. I know some people will get grumpy of priests talking about politics, but I think it's really important. I am not a big fan of preaching politics from the pulpit. Not in the sense that lots of people are talking about these days. I am never going to stand up and tell a parishioner, or anybody else for that matter, who they should vote for. I will tell people to vote. It is our responsibility. It's a privilege that we have in Canada anyway, as well as America and lots of other places in the world. But it's a privilege for us to be able to vote. As a woman, it's a privilege for me to be able to vote because it was not a right forever. For a lot of women, I can't remember the exact dates. I'm really bad at my history. But women didn't have the vote for a very long time. And it seems like we've had it for a very long time. But given the way the world, and I'm not just talking about states, given the way the politics of the world are going, sometimes I wonder if women might lose the vote. In some places, I think that might be a stronger possibility than others. And I'm really hoping and praying that never happens in Canada. But women voting has not been a forever thing. Wasn't a given at the beginning of Canada in 1867. So for me as a female, it's important that I exercise my right to vote. As a member of a military family, my husband puts himself on the line. He has been deployed overseas, and everything that he does, the whole way of his being, the promises he has made, that he will give of himself, even if it means giving himself, to defend our country. And part of that is our right to vote, the ability we have to vote, because people like my husband and those who have gone before, who have gone before, who fought in the wars, for the very things like people being able to vote, people being able to have a safe democracy in which to live, that's not a given. And these days, it really isn't a given. Looking at what's happening about people's rights around the world, and the concern, the removing rights from women, the idea that some people should have rights and some people shouldn't. Some people, there's a lot of rhetoric, and I'm starting to hear it up here north of the border too, about who really is a person and who has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. So when we have the opportunity to vote, in our case in Alberta, to go out today and vote in our provincial election to elect a premier of a premier, we kind of like, I think, a governor in the States, and for all of our members of legislative assembly, we need to take it seriously. And so I did not stand up in my pulpits and tell people who to vote for on Sunday, but I did take time to tell folks they need to vote. And I would hope that people wouldn't just simply go and blindly vote, because they are, in Alberta, we sort of have the NDP and we have the United Progressive Conservatives, the UPC. And then there's some other fringe groups, some other more conservative, and I think we have Liberal, but I didn't even see a sign for a Liberal in my riding. Um, but we have those other groups. There'll probably be many of them on the ballot tomorrow or today, for many people when they go to their particular riding. Each riding will have a different number of possible candidates to elect because of their riding, where they are. And so that's a very powerful thing, that we have to make our choice. We have to make our decisions carefully. Now, granted, there are people who vote because they vote party because that's all they've ever done. They've always voted the party. But I would really encourage people, even if you've always done that, to take some time to research what is it that your party stands for today. In one of the wonderful things I did, I had the fun of looking into when I was in Halifax, when I used to go on Fridays to the library and read, was I took out a book about the Stanfield years. Stanfield he was never elected Prime Minister of Canada, but he was a conservative. He was a conservative member of Parliament, and he had very conservative ideas. And I automatically thought, well, I'm not going to like this guy because I'm more liberal NDP, and it was in the 60s. And I read the book and I realized that the Conservative Party of the 1960s, the prior to the 70s, was very much like what we think about with the liberals today. And when I did some research, I realized that the liberals of today were very much like the conservatives of today are, that somewhere along the line they flipped. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, a similar thing happened in the States. That originally, I mean, Lincoln, all that, there was the Republicans who were the ones fighting for emancipation. It was the Republicans who were the ones that were recognizing that human rights were needed. And it was the Democrats who were more the staid conservative, this is the way it should be, and we're going to make. And then there was a flip. I want to say around Nixon's time, but I'm not sure. And I don't know, I'm not well read in this. It's just anecdotal observation, put it that way. And then something flipped, and all of a sudden, those people who would traditionally have been Democratic sort of became Republican, and vice versa. So politics doesn't, it's not static. It doesn't stay the same. So for those of you who are in Canada, who are voting in Alberta this week or today, I really do invite you to, before you cast your ballot, to Google, to read the research, think about those people who came door to door, if somebody did, or if you went out to debates, and listen to what they said, and think about who they are and how they represent themselves. When we vote for someone, we aren't just simply voting for a party. We are indeed voting for the person and who they are. If we vote for somebody who we believe will stand up and say, you know what, this is what my conscience says, this is what I believe would be best for my constituents, then it might not be as important which party they're voting for. I have indeed voted in my time since I was 18. I've had a few elections to vote in. And there have been times when I have voted contrary to the party that I normally would vote for, because the person in my riding for whom I could cast a ballot was someone I trusted, wouldn't necessarily drink the Kool-Aid and do what the party said, but would indeed be a leader within the party to say, you know what, no, this isn't the right thing to do. This is the right thing to do. And in some cases that does happen. So it's not simply as cut and dry as I'm going to vote orange for NDP, or I'm going to write red for Liberal, or blue for the UPC, or the other very conservative parties. It really does require us to think and to pay attention and to do research. And I would argue that as Christians, we're called to pray. It is really important that we exercise our right and our responsibility to vote. But it doesn't end when you cast your ballot, when you mark that X and you drop your ballot in the box. There are other ways to get involved. I will be a scrutineer this evening, just making sure that we've got a second set of eyes to make sure that the ballots are being counted properly. Is it because I don't trust that they will be? Absolutely not. But because in our system here, we have people who watch. They just scrutinize. They make sure it's okay. And if there's a challenge, there's some other witness there. It's one of the fail-safes we have, so one of the backstops, I should say, we have in how this will go smoothly. But there's other things we need to remember, that when we elect someone, even if the person elected is not the person that we voted for, they become our representative. And even if we don't agree with them, even if we don't like them, we need to support them. We need to pray for them. We need to say, this is the will of the people, whether or not we believe it was the will of God. It was the will of the people. That's why they've been elected. And now we need to support them. That does not mean that we automatically agree with them, but it should mean that we don't curse them. It should mean that we pray for them. That every time there is there is a motion on the floor, every time there is a decision to be made, or they have something difficult they need to do, we should be covering them in prayer. That they would feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, that they would have the courage to speak up, even if it means speaking out against their party, that they would have the ability and the strength to work for all of the people in their riding and not just the ones who voted for them. For instance, if there were 1,000 people voting in a riding and 720 of them voted for the UPC government and only 280 voted for the NDP, it isn't right that that UPC member of Legislative Assembly would say, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find out who those 720 UPC voters were, and I'm going to do what they want me to do. What that person needs to do is go out and find out what the whole constituency needs, what would be best for the people in his or her riding, and then vote or work or move or create motions and do the work of ensuring that what is best for his or her people happens. Now, I know that sounds awfully Pollyanna, but it's also awfully Christian. We're called to pray for those elected officials, whether we like them or not. And then we need to support them. And that might mean letter writing campaigns. It might mean going to their office and sitting down with them and saying, you've been elected. I am one of your constituents. Here are my concerns. Here is what I can offer you. How can I pray for you? How can I offer to you my support? Even when I don't necessarily agree with you, how can you understand that you have taken our trust as constituents and you need to hold it with dignity and integrity, and you need to respect us as we do the same for you. Politics has no place in the pulpit, but politics, like the church, has a place in the world. The two can't be divorced. They have to live side by side. And those of us who are in the church need to understand that we need to lead by example. We cannot hate. We cannot rail against those who disagree with us. We must love. We must pray for those who are different or differing from us. And we must find ways to show them, those who disagree with us, how we can come alongside one another and work toward the good of all people. At the end of the day, I think that's what Jesus would want. Not that we would yell at others or curse them or tell them, that they're not doing the right thing, but simply say, how can we help you to do the right thing for all the people? So if you are in Alberta, I really do encourage you, get out and vote today. And if you're someplace else that's having an election coming up, pray about it. Get yourself involved. Research and ask questions and pay attention. And then, for heaven's sakes, cast your ballot. Have a great day, everybody. God bless. And I won't probably know the results of what happens in today's election before I have to record Tuesday's video. So I'll probably talk about it on Wednesday or Thursday. But thank you for your prayers, and thank you for everybody for doing your civic duty as well as your Christian one. Have a great day, and God bless.